Hey everyone and welcome. Today, we're diving into the story of a brand that honestly wasn't just in Indian kitchens, it was the Indian kitchen for decades. A brand so big, its name literally became the word for the product itself. This is the absolutely wild story of Dalda's rise, its dramatic fall, and its fight to be reborn.
To really get the Dalda story, you first have to understand ghee. Now, in India, pure desi ghee, clarified butter, it's not just for cooking. It's a huge part of the culture, it's used in religious ceremonies, it's seen as this pure, wholesome thing. And because of all that, it was, and still is, super expensive. It was truly a precious thing, something you guard very, very carefully.
And right there, that created this massive opportunity. See, on one hand, you had the traditional stuff, pure, beloved, but really expensive desi ghee. And then on the other hand, something new comes along, Vanaspati. It's a hydrogenated vegetable oil made to look, feel, and cook just like ghee, but, and this is the key part, for way, way less money. This was the setup for a complete revolution.
So, the big question is, how did this simple substitute become one of the most powerful brands in Indian history? Well, the story gets interesting right away, because it doesn't start in India at all. Nope, it starts with some European traders who saw a gap in the market that was just too big to ignore.
It's kind of wild to think about, right? For a brand that feels so deeply Indian, its roots are completely European. It all started in the 1930s when Dutch traders first brought Vanaspati to India. The Lever brothers, who you probably know as Unilever today, saw the massive potential right away. They set up Hindustan Vanaspati manufacturing in 1931, opened a factory near Mumbai the next year, and by 1937, the brand we all know as Dalda was officially here.
And even the name tells this story. So when the Lever brothers bought the rights from the original Dutch company, which was called Dalda, there was a catch. They had to keep the name Dalda in there somehow. So what they do? They just cleverly stuck an L for lever right in the middle. And poof, Dalda became Dalda. Pretty smart, right?
Okay, so they had the product, but the real challenge was getting people in India to actually use it. To pull that off, Dalda launched what was probably India's first ever multimedia ad campaign back in 1939. And I mean, this was a full-on blitz. They had short films playing in movie theaters, these crazy round 10-shaped vans driving through cities and villages, print ads everywhere, and, get this, live cooking demos right on the streets so people could see and taste it for themselves. It was absolutely revolutionary for its time.
But here's where they went from smart to genius. The brand's true masterstroke was connecting with people on an emotional level. Their tagline, "Where there is a mother's love, there is Dalda," was brilliant. It wasn't just selling cooking fat anymore. It was selling the idea of a mother's love and care. And that simple, powerful idea cemented Dalda's place in the heart of the Indian family for almost half a century.
But, as we know, that reign just couldn't last forever. The very thing that made Dalda cheap and accessible, that industrial process, was about to become its biggest weakness. The brand's fall from grace really started with one very troubling question about what it was doing to people's health.
So let's get into it. What is this Vanaspati, or vegetable ghee, anyway? To really understand why Dalda fell, we have to look under the hood and understand the science behind what's actually inside that iconic yellow and green tin.
Okay, so the key culprit here is something called artificial trans fats. These things aren't natural. They're made in a factory through a process called hydrogenation. Basically, you take liquid vegetable oil, you pump it full of hydrogen, and that makes the oil solid. It gives it a really long shelf life and a texture a lot like butter or ghee. But it also creates something that our bodies just have no idea how to process. And the source of these trans fats? Partially hydrogenated oils. That's the very definition of Vanaspati. This puts Dalda in the same club as a lot of other foods that we now know are really bad for us. Think fried fast food, store-bought cakes and cookies, that kind of stuff.
And the health impact is, well, it's really bad. It's been documented for years. Eating trans fats raises your LDL. That's the bad cholesterol that clogs up your arteries. But it also lowers your HDL, the good cholesterol that helps keep them clear. It's a double whammy that just dramatically increases your risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes.
So as people in India and all over the world started becoming more health conscious, Dalda's shiny crown really started to tarnish. And a couple of big public controversies took that simmering health concern and turned it into a full-blown crisis of consumer trust.
Now, the brand had faced problems before. Way back in the 1950s, people were calling for a ban, saying it was just a cheap imitation of the real thing. But the real knockout punch came in the 1990s.
Allegations started flying that Dalda actually had animal fat in it. For a product that built its entire identity on being vegetable ghee in a country with a huge vegetarian population, that was just devastating. It completely shattered their credibility.
So you had the health concerns, you had the controversies, and it all led to this massive shift in the market. It was like an earthquake. Consumers just started abandoning Vanaspati and switching to what they saw as healthier, refined oils, like sunflower and soybean oil. Vanaspati, which used to rule the market, saw its share just completely crater. And then came the end of an era. In 2003, Hindustan Unilever, the very company that built the Dalda empire, sold the brand. The buyer was an American company called Bunge, and they were now facing the monumental task of trying to save a legendary, but very, very tarnished icon.
So what do? You've got this legendary brand name that everyone knows, but now it's basically synonymous with an unhealthy product. Well, the new owner, Bunge, decided not to kill the name. Instead, they tried to completely reinvent it for a new modern India.
Let's just quickly remember that old message, right? Where there is a mother's love, there is Dalda. It was incredibly powerful, but it was also totally rooted in this very traditional idea of family, where the kitchen was mom's space and mom's space only.
To try and reconnect with a younger generation, Dalda did a complete 180. Their new campaigns pushed a much more modern, inclusive idea, with a really clear message. Hey, the kitchen is for everyone. So here's the playbook they used. First, they turned Dalda into an umbrella brand. They used that famous name to sell the very things that had crushed it, healthier refined oils like sunflower and soybean. Their ads started showing totally new family dynamics, teenage sons in the kitchen learning to cook, mothers-in-law breaking tradition to cook special meals for their daughters-in-law. The whole strategy was to keep the heritage of the name but attach it to modern products and, more importantly, modern values.
Okay, so after all that, after changing the product, changing the message, changing its whole identity, has it actually worked? Can a brand like Dalda truly be reborn? Well, the answer is, it's complicated. If you just look at the business side of things, the signs are pretty good. The new strategy seems to be working, with some really significant growth in their earnings. By jumping into refined oils, Bunge definitely gave the brand a new lease on life, commercially speaking. But, and this is a huge but, business success is one thing. Public perception is a totally different beast. This point just nails the challenge they still face. Even with all the new products, for so many people, the name Dalda is still stuck to its past as unhealthy Vanaspati. That stigma? It's incredibly powerful and it just won't go away.
And really, that's what it all comes down to. The story of Dalda is an amazing lesson in brand building. It's a huge cautionary tale about health, and it's a fascinating look at trying to pull off a revival. But it leaves us with this one big question. No matter how brilliant your marketing is, can you ever truly rewrite a brand's history? Can a name with a legacy that powerful and that complicated ever really escape its past?